I haven't. I lied. Chapter 5 of Fortnite was easily one of the worst times to ever be playing the game. Unobjectively, it was the worst chapter of Fortnite the game has ever seen across every single margin. The map was consistently mediocre, the gameplay was miserable, the visuals were through the floor, and in recent times it feels like I can't go 5 minutes without seeing somebody wishing they could go back and play Miss Immortals again, somebody wishing they could use the Frenzy Auto Shotgun again. Yeah, I also want to go back to being tortured or beaten up every day. We have so much in common. I genuinely don't understand how anybody can be nostalgic in any way for this chapter. It's one of the worst we've ever had, and yes, in this video, I'm going to be doing my best to convince you why this is the truth. I mean, starting off, we were fresh off the heels of Chapter 4 Season OG. Certainly one of the most Fortnite-y seasons of all time, which is why it was so devastating that when we finally got to the end of this season, you know, we ended up getting thrown into the least Fortnite-y seasons of all time, with Chapter 5 Season 1. Listen, even if you really like Chapter 5, you know, you're glazing it with your life, you're making nostalgia edits, even you guys have to admit that this is easily the worst season in this chapter. Nothing about this season felt like Fortnite. Everything was so realistic and grounded and gritty and miserable and dark. Nothing about it felt like anything close to what I was playing the game for. I mean, of course, you had the addition of the bullet drop mechanic, and I gotta say, I really don't think bullet drop belongs in Fortnite, even though bullet drop is really good, and I gotta say, some of these weapons do benefit very heavily from having bullet drop. I definitely think the balance we have now, where they kind of like hit scan until around 150 meters, then they get bullet drop, I think that is such a good idea. So I definitely do think that bullet drop works in a game like Fortnite, but not on every single weapon. It just doesn't feel good. Fortnite is meant to be a fast-paced action shooter game, not a realistic grounded tactical experience. It just made no sense, and it completely ruined the feel of the game. On top of that, coming into this season, we got the introduction of the new lighting system, which was unbelievably ugly. That was genuinely devastating to me as somebody that will play the game more if the game actually looks good. You know, I really love Chapter 6 Season 1 for that exact reason. I could just wander around and have a look at all the pretty assets. Seeing just how much this chapter of the game butchered how the game actually looks devastated me. I mean, I know a lot of you people started in Chapter 5, but you have to understand, you know, we'd just come from two of the most stunning seasons of all time, being Chapter 4 Season 4 and Chapter 4 Season OG, and then you loaded up the new season, and it just looked like every other Battle Royale game on the market. I don't know, man, it just really felt like the soul got ripped out of the game during this season. I mean, even something as small and as tiny as the removal of all the special types of cars, just so they could make room for the SUV and sports car, just felt like a kick in the stomach for the fun and interesting vehicles this game usually offers. I mean, Fortnite is known for its crazy and wacky vehicles, and with these vehicles added to the game, vehicles like the Nitro Drifters and the trucks and the flatbeds and the ballers were just instantly taken away from the game just so they could try and sell some car bodies for over 4,000 V-Bucks on launch? Seriously, this is such a bizarre decision, and it ended up leading to Epic Games being scared to add in any other vehicles that were better than the cars because they just didn't want people not to take the cars that they spent money on. It was such a baffling decision for them to make, and it just ruined so many of the seasons in this chapter, and then Chapter 6 as well, that should have had amazing vehicles. Like, for example, can you imagine Miss Immortals where you would be able to drive around in a chariot, or Absolute Doom with Quinjets that play similar to how the choppers played from Chapter 6 Season 4. I'm sorry, but we missed out on so much just because of how Epic wanted to force the metaverse down our throats in this season, and honestly, I mourn the Chapter 5 that we never ended up getting. Because it isn't like I don't see the potential in this chapter. Chapter 5 had the potential to be one of the best chapters of all time, if not the best chapter of all time. The introduction of a metaverse, so many new wars just launching bam, 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 over and over and over again. It should have been great, but so many bad decisions just ended up making this chapter feel bland and lifeless. I mean, even the collaboration content in this season couldn't escape feeling soulless. Like, can you guys even imagine the Fallout collaboration happening today and it only adds a Slurp Juice reskin, one mediocre pistol, and a back bling? Epic Games wouldn't hear the end of it, but for some reason, this chapter just gets a special pass. Like, I just can't stand the amount of people that seem to just endlessly glaze this chapter. And they all seem to spawn out of nowhere too. You know, none of them were actually around during actual Chapter 5, mainly because the people could see how terrible of a state the game was at the time. All of these defenders seemed to crawl out of the cracks after the chapter had ended. I literally couldn't believe my eyes eyes when I was playing Chapter 6 Season 1, and I saw somebody on my Twitter timeline genuinely saying Chapter 5 Season 1 was better. No, it wasn't. Are you insane?
He is not just a man. He's not just a Superman. He is the prophet of the Lord!
Now, an argument some people do like to use to defend this chapter is that they kind of like pull up the player counts. You know, they all go like,
the BR player count was so high during Chapter 5, and now it can barely crack 400,000.
And I don't know, I just wonder what could have happened between Chapter 4 Season OG and Chapter 6 Season 1 that could have caused the player count to drop so drastically. I mean, surely not the entirety of Chapter 5. Okay, but no, on a more serious note, if you guys can't tell that this was literally just the player count losing faith in the game, you know, they were giving it chance after chance after chance, and by the time you actually got to a genuinely good Fortnite season, the only people left were the people that would just play the game regardless. It's such a stupid argument. I just don't understand what people are trying to get across when they bring this thing up, because it instantly tells what caused people to quit the game. And every single weapon and every single item and every single whatever that came out in that period of time was just too broken for anybody to enjoy. Like, I mean, you have some infamous items and all of these came out within weeks of each other. Like, you had the Frenzy Auto, you had the Reaper Sniper Rifle, which even though it's goated, it is still one of the most ridiculous items in Fortnite history. You also had Waterbending, Nitro Fist, the Hover Jets, Captain America's Shield, the Armor of Doom, the car mods, the Ballistic Shield, the Auto Turret. It was just ridiculous. Every single season had one, if not multiple, of these crutch items, and it was relentless for anybody who actually tried playing the game as it was meant to be played. I mean, the Hover Jets especially actually made me quit the game for a while. I just started playing Animal Crossing New Leaf again. That's how bad they were. I mean, an item like that in a bullet drop season is just pure stupidity, and I'm shocked they ever got approved to be put into the game like they were. And you know what, while we're on that topic, I'm going to talk about a few more features that this game added that I honestly don't understand how they got added to the game in the state that we're in, and the first of which are the weapon mods. Now, this one I don't really have an issue with, rather I just kind of feel disappointed. These things were super underutilized. They could have been way more fun, they should have been way more fun, but for some weird reason, they were just really basic, they were really realistic, they were really grounded. Nothing about these weapon mods was fun, and there was no real reason to take any of them apart from maybe the 1.25 scope. They just should have been more fun, they should have been more goofy, they should have been more exciting, and in fact, I've actually got a few concepts for some more fun weapon modifications that feel more at home with how Fortnite is meant to be. Like, I had incredible ideas like a blink mag attachment that would give you a 0-point dash whenever you reloaded the weapon, a booger barrel which would be limited to sniper rifles only, and whenever you actually hit a shot with a sniper rifle, the opponent would be forced under a booger bomb effect, but the magazine size would be limited to 1. I also came up with a Thorn Strike magazine which would inflict slight damage upon reload, but also while you were holding the weapon, it would damage the opponent whenever they attack you. I also came up with the Nitro barrel, which would deal 3 times as much damage to vehicles, causing light explosive damage to surrounding walls that you shoot it onto. It would definitely be more intended for breaching rather than attacking, because to balance this out, I would also lower the damage on the actual weapon. I also had an idea for a recon scope, which would mark enemies that you directly look at through the scope for 5 to 10 seconds, but in return, the lens flare is double in size. I did also have some ideas for some smaller scale barrels, one of which would shoot out like fire bullets, you know, kind of like the Dragon's Best shotgun or sniper, and one which would replace the normal assault rifle barrel with an explosive goo barrel. Honestly, all of these ideas are really cool, and I came up with all of these on a whim like 5 months ago. But no, instead, you get slightly different scopes and the ability to move slightly faster while you're aiming in. There's so much more that could have been done with these scopes and with these barrels and with everything to do with the system, but it just simply wasn't. I mean, carrying on with talking about the new features that this chapter brought to the game, we have to talk about the medallions. These things were just frankly ridiculous, even though they didn't start off as bad as they would eventually become. Even all the way back at day 1, these things still felt unfair. I mean, they ruined late game, they ruined early game, they ruined mid game. Nothing about these things was good. If we're going to break this down, obviously you had early game where everybody would just drop at one location because the boss was there and you weren't winning a match without these medallions. And then in the middle of the game, everybody would just go harass the people with the medallions because you get marked on the map. So essentially you wouldn't really find a fight unless you track down the people with the medallions because everybody else was running towards them as well. And then even worse, in late game, it would eventually get to the point where somebody had all of the medallions and they were just an unstoppable superhero just rampaging around the island. None of these situations were good for the gameplay loop, and I can't understand anybody who's asking for these to be brought back. Like, they were either so strong you couldn't not take them, or on the other hand, you know, you'd have medallions which were completely useless to the point where it just wasn't even worth it. Like, for example, I don't think anybody was going to take the Ares medallion, you know, the one that would add at most +1 damage in exchange for being permanently marked on the map and being tracked down and hunted all game. I'm sorry, but these items are just flawed all the way through, and it just wasn't good for anybody. But of course, I can't just keep whining about the features that this chapter brought to the game. I've got to talk about the seasons. And no, I'm not going to talk about the changes in movement this season. I'm not even going to hawk that den of snakes. I'm not even going to go near that. I know that is a whole other issue that I could make a whole other video about. But of course, you know, if we're going to talk about the seasons, we do have to start at the very beginning. And obviously, we're going to first break down Chapter 5 Season 1. Now, the best way I can describe this season, and if you want to know where I rank it on a list of every other Season 1s, make sure to click the link up in the corner, is that even though it looked like it was packed full of content on the surface, you know, you had so many mods coming out, you know, you had a whole new Battle Royale map and season to play, it just didn't have that much to offer. I mean, Battle Royale was dry as hell, Lego was basically empty with nothing to do, Fortnite Festival was super bare bones, even though it was definitely the best of the bunch, and Rocket Racing was, well, it was Rocket Racing. I mean, looping back, Battle Royale, it had nothing going on for the most part. I mean, people try to gaslight me all the time into thinking otherwise. You know, they were saying like Chapter 5 Season 1 had so much to do, there was so much content that was coming out. But I remember nothing was going on in the season. It was so unbelievably dry. I'm sorry, the Reaper Sniper Rifle just wasn't good enough to carry the entire season. You know, Chapter 5 Season 1's map is easily my least favorite map across Fortnite history. Nothing comes close, it just felt dreadful, it had no good locations. Even the locations that were half decent just felt exactly the same. Ritzy Riviera and Snooty Steps were quite literally just the exact same location but changed around a little bit. And then of course you had Chapter 5 Season 2, which was a great season. Until it wasn't. I mean, half of this season wasn't even themed around the Greek gods, and even while it was, it barely had any space to breathe, you know, between the whole Avatar collaboration and Star Wars. This season just sucked. It was boring. It was such a boring season. I don't even want to talk about it for too long. I just didn't like the season at all. Nothing about it felt exciting in any single way. You then had Chapter 5 Season 3, which was definitely for sure the most Fortnite-y feeling season in this whole batch. It definitely had that very strong identity to it. It had a lot of content going on. The map changes were really good. It's by far my personal favorite out of Chapter 5, you know, if I did have to choose. But really, that's kind of like choosing between walking across a mile of hot coals versus shards of glass. But it was also by far the most broken season in this chapter. It went all in with its season theme, and I've got to say it definitely went a little bit too far in with it. It was also a cosmically unbalanced season. I genuinely don't think there was a single weapon in that loot pool that wasn't completely busted, and there is definitely a reason why this season is as hated as it is. In my opinion, the perfect season is one that allows you to play in any single way you want. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. And this season did the exact opposite of that. It forced you to play in one or two ways, either rocking like Nitro and the Nitro Fist, or making you use the car mods and absolutely decimate anybody you walk into. It was just a super bad season in that respect, and even though it was definitely the most fun out of the bunch, I still really hated this thing. And I'm not even going to talk about Chapter 5 Season 4. I don't even want to waste my breath on it. Although it wasn't entirely bad, I did enjoy the Fortnite mares that season, but that's literally it. Of course though, the whole gimmick with this chapter wasn't even Battle Royale. Yeah, that got shoved to the side. in favor of something that I think completely ruined the game for a very, very, very long time, being the Metaverse. Oh, if anybody actually played Chapter 5 and is watching this video and actually enjoys the game that they play, you just flinched when I said the word Metaverse. This genuinely ruined Battle Royale for so long, and we literally didn't recover from it until around maybe midway through Fortnite Remix. Of course, throughout the entire chapter, we had 5 separate Metaverse mods release, the first of which being Lego Fortnite, which I'm going to talk very quickly about. You guys have heard it all before. When this mod came out, it was just incredibly bare bones. There was no final boss or any real goal. There was nothing to do apart from building villages, and even then, you couldn't really do anything because there was a build limit to all of these villagers. This mode just shot itself in the foot so badly, it was in such a dreadful state at the start of the year. And to make things even worse, this mod single-handedly ruined the item shops for like almost a year. Especially the item shops that came out in Chapter 5 Season 1, they were genuinely infamous. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a period in the first season where the shop literally didn't change for a month, and the Lego mod was entirely to blame because they completely refused to put a skin in the shop without it having a Lego style attached to it. And even worse, because there was like well over 4,000 skins that they had to recreate just so this mod would be entirely compatible, literally every single person that was working on the game was put onto making Lego Fortnite skins, meaning there was no mid-season content to enjoy. All of the resources just got poured into these styles, and I think if it just had a little bit longer in the oven, it would have been so much better. Following that one up as well, you had Fortnite Festival, which was honestly the best out of the bunch, so I'm not really going to talk about it as much as the others. I mean, they literally hired the guys that made Guitar Hero for this. It wasn't ever going to be bad, and even without some of the quality of life features that have been added to this mod throughout the years, it was still really fun and definitely the most fun to play on day one. And finally, to round off this first batch of Metaverse mods, you had Rocket Racing. What do I even gotta say about this mod anymore? It was literally so bad that Epic Games had to shut it down recently. Even in its prime, it was barely struggling to get like 12,000 players, and eventually it did just end up coughing down to like 300 or 400. And honestly, I think the biggest issue with this mod was the fact that it was just really boring. Very similarly to Chapter 5 Season 1, this just felt like a game that had all of the fun struck out of it. Like, you look at Fortnite, it's a game known for its goofy items and weapons, and for whatever reason, the developers of this mod just chose not to add any of these iconic items into the mode, and then a whole ass season based around car mods was added to the game, and they still chose not to add any items. It's mind-boggling. I genuinely don't know what was going on in that development room. Did we just need to like send Tim Sweeney in there to like wake them up? Because they were doing nothing with this mod. Ugh, it could have been so good. The movement was fantastic. I can't believe they just let this mod die the way it is. But of course, the worst thing to come along with this metaverse was the loading screen. Let's be honest, guys, this loading screen instantly made Fortnite feel so much more soulless, so much worse than it actually was. I don't know if you guys feel the same about this, but in my opinion, the loading screen is what gets you hyped to play Fortnite. It sets the tone for the season perfectly. Like, for example, you know, you're loading into Chapter 7 for the first day, and you're instantly wondering, what's this Dark Voyager guy about? I'm seeing a cube. Is it the last reality? Oh my god, look behind him. Is that the new map? Is that going to be a new location? Even before you've gone into the game, you're already getting excited for what's in store, but with the removal of a new loading screen for every single season, you know, instead of changing it every single time a new BR season changed, they just keep it the same to have kind of like a more uniform metaverse look. It just completely dropped all of this unique experience that Fortnite happens to offer, and I genuinely don't understand what they were thinking. And I am so glad that we're finally out of that time period. We are never, ever, ever, ever gonna have another metaverse loading screen again. Oh god! Okay, but all faults aside, you guys might have noticed I haven't really talked about one metaverse mod that is easily the best out of the whole bunch released in Chapter 5, and obviously that is Fortnite Reload. I mean, this was just a pure gem of a mod. The fact that this came out in such a phenomenal state, and the fact that it came out exactly when it did, genuinely felt impossible at the time. It was like old Fortnite was back. It felt incredible, and it showed to Epic that people wanted how the game used to feel to come back. And I'm certain that without this mod, we'd still be stuck with projectile weapons and an ugly art style. Seriously, those first few months of Fortnite Reload just felt incredible. I missed that era of Reload so badly. It was just phenomenal. It was the most fun I've had with the game since Season OG, and it firmly solidified my position that I hated how Chapter 5 felt. This mode made me fall back in love with the game again after I started to think that I hated it, and honestly, Venture holds a very warm place in my heart. Now listen, looking at the metaverse as an overall thing, you know, even though it did have its moments, unfortunately, the whole experiment was just kind of bad overall. It was just an incredibly stupid decision to just shove all of these several incomplete mods out and only fix them once nobody really cared anymore. Because, I mean, you look at Lego Fortnite, that's a full-fledged open world game now. You looked at Rocket Racing, didn't really change. You look at Fortnite Festival, which is just phenomenal right now. All of these mods had just as much potential as each other to stick around and be just as huge as Battle Royale and as Reload, and it felt terrible to see Epic Games jump the gun so quickly just for the sake of showing these things off without thinking of the future of these modes. And yeah, honestly, I think that is the perfect way to describe Chapter 5. It was just a missed opportunity that had every right to be fantastic, but it missed literally every single chance it got given. Battle Royale was underwhelming, the loopholes were underdeveloped, the metaverse was underbaked. Nothing about this chapter felt fully complete, and even though they tried to do so much and they were so ambitious with this, because of this ambition, they ended up neglecting every single one of these mods, leading to none of them being as good as they really should have been, and leading to an overall hollow experience. This chapter had so much potential, and there was definitely a world where this chapter was good. It just isn't this one, and unfortunately, it is always going to remain as my least favorite chapter in Fortnite history. Alright everybody, thank you so much for sticking all the way till the end. If you stick around a little bit longer, I've just got a couple of things to ask you guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. This style of content is definitely a little bit new for me, and I would love to make more of these kind of mini retrospectives. So if you did enjoy, let me know down below in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys think I should do next. Also, I am sorry for baiting you guys on this video. I had to get you to watch it somehow. And hey, if you want to personally argue with me, make sure to click that Discord link in my profile description. It'll bring you straight to the server. We have an amazing community. You can talk to me directly, and I can't wait to see you guys there. But hey, at the end of the day, all you really gotta do is stay safe, drink some water, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye!